well, welcome everyone. I'm so excited. This is our second career conversation of the semester. So this is Career Conversations, Criminal Justice. And we have four wonderful panelists that have joined us. I will let them all introduce themselves. But what we'll do is we'll have a brief introduction by each of our panelists, and then we will dive into your questions, students. And so for students, once we get into questions, you can either type your question into the chat or raise your hand, and I will come around. Perfect. All right, so let's start with Janice.
Good afternoon. My name is Janice Perez. I'm currently the Deputy Director of Diversity and Inclusion for the Department of Corrections. I didn't prepare an introduction. I assumed that you were going to introduce me. So I'll go back a little bit. So I've been with the Department of Corrections for about 25 years. I started in the field as a contract employee with Spectrum Health Systems. And then about 5 years after being a contract employee and working at different levels of security, I decided to become a correctional program officer, because what I noticed is that I was working alongside people that were working for the state that were doing similar things, but just a little bit differently. So I went through the academy back in 2000, became a correctional program officer. And then I started my career working at MCI Lancaster, which was community corrections out in Lancaster. And it was co-ed. It was male offenders and female offenders on the same grounds. And believe it or not, most of our issues was trying to keep the men away from the women. So I did that for a few years until that facility closed. And then I moved over as a correctional program officer doing security. And the reason I say that is correctional program officers do security as well as case management. So I went and I started working with females only, which was an eye-opener because your female offenders are very different than their male counterparts. So that was eye-opening. I did that for a little bit. And then afterwards, I started working as in the training department for a few years as what they call a guest drill instructor. And I was probably one of the first. Prior to me coming on, it was mostly correctional officers that did the training academy. And one of the things that we discovered is that we didn't have representation for the CPOs and COs. So they changed that, and I kind of got thrown into becoming a drill instructor. So I did that for a couple of years and then got promoted and went back to the facility and became an investigator. So I was an investigator within the department, investigating cases of sexual assault and things going on in the facility. Did that for a few years, and then decided to take a chance at management. And I went into management. I was a director of classification for about 5 years at MCI Shirley Medium. So I went from working the majority of my career with minimum inmates, men and women, to working at a medium security, which was, again, eye-opening. So I did that for a few years there, classifying offenders into different levels of security and returning them to higher custody in different cases. Did that before then I got moved over again to minimum security as a director of classification and treatment. So I was wearing two hats. We were classifying the offenders as well as thinking about programming to bring into the facility for the offenders. So I was doing that. That was probably one of my most fulfilling jobs that I've had so far. And the facility, as I mentioned earlier, just closed. We mothballed that facility. The offenders got sent to different various facilities, and I was just recently promoted to Deputy Director of Diversity and Inclusion here at headquarters. So this is what I'm doing now. So in a nutshell, that's been that's my background, and that's what I've been doing for the last 25 years.
Wonderful, thank you. Samantha.
Hey guys, so my name is Samantha Smith. I am the Assets Protection Business Partner for Central Massachusetts and Southern New Hampshire for Target. So essentially, I'm a district loss prevention manager. I oversee 9 stores throughout central Massachusetts and southern New Hampshire. Little background about myself. I started with Target 8 years ago. I picked up a seasonal job during Christmas as a style team member. I never thought in a million years I would make a career out of Target. I was used to the small box retail stores. I did some small box management before I got into Target. This was just a quick job, make a little extra cash during Christmas, but I absolutely fell in love with the company during my time. Really invested in the guests and really invested in the team. I, from there, joined loss prevention as a security uniform position. And I really found my passion. I found my love for it. It was amazing to me that you could stop shoplifters and keep money in the building for guests to buy that product, right? So that really is what did it for me, and just how we make everybody feel safe when they come into our store. And then from there, I got promoted to an assets protection team leader in Swansea, Massachusetts. I did that for a little while, about 18 months, and I got promoted from that position to an executive team leader of assets protection, which is our salary-based position. I did 2 assignments of that. I did Millbury, Massachusetts, and then I did the Target Boston Fenway store. That was definitely an experience. Right next to Fenway Park, I actually was the executive there when the Red Sox won the World Series. So a lot of crowd control, just some really exciting times doing that. And then 2 years ago, I was promoted to my current position. A little bit about Target, guys. Target has 1,870 stores and 42 distribution centers across the United States. So really big company. Target also donates 5% of profits to communities, which is amazing to me, right? Like, we're really invested in giving back to the community. And that's really what I love about this company. I really love the investment and the development that they put into everybody. The diversity and the inclusion is just incredible in this company.
Great, thank you so much. And Staff Sergeant Allen.
Hello, Staff Sergeant Allen. I've been in the military for about 8 years in an intelligence community. On my half, I've been mainly dealing with people interactions and with the units. And my counterpart, she also works in the same field, and I let her explain like the other half of our job.
Yeah, I'm a signals intelligence analyst. I've been in the Army for about 8 years as well. But I've spent the majority of my time working more strategic level, like National Security Association, working with other like 3-letter agencies on national security. And, you know, I've worked with FBI, CIA, foreign intelligence units, other countries. So have a wealth of knowledge about avenues into those areas through the military.
Yeah, so all in all, our experiences mainly been, you know, like everywhere. My half is more, you know, on the ground. Her half is more, you know, surveillance and talking to all the big wigs. And mine's more, I fall in a tactical realm, so tactical intel. She falls into, you know, the signal and everybody coming together and working where you can't take your cell phone and smartwatches. So that's most of our experience. But yeah, I guess 8 years, I've been like literally all over the place. So Malaysia, Japan, Indonesia, Kuwait, Iraq. So like our experiences go everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. And Brandi.
So I am the Senior SAFEPLAN Advocate for North Central Mass, and I work for the YWCA. However, I'm based in a court. I have been doing this since my internship for Fitchburg State. I obtained my position as an intern. I started as a regular advocate, and I've been promoted in the last 6 years. What my role entails is that we support survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault in the court system. We walk them through the system. We assist with getting restraining orders and harassment orders. And we do safety planning and help if somebody needs to be relocated. Yeah, that's about it.
Wonderful. Thank you all. And for students, you'll notice we really tried to get some out of the box things you might not think about that you can do with your criminal justice degree. And so I would love to open it up for questions. So students, you can either type your questions into the chat or just raise your hand and we will call on you. But what questions do you have for our wonderful panelists?
While they're thinking, could I just ask?
Of course.
Okay, I would love to know what background each of the panelists looks for in applicants. Can you come right out of college? Do you need any experience, that sort of thing?
I can take that one.
Okay.
Sorry. So for me, no, you don't need any experience. You just need to be dedicated, right? You just have to be willing to learn. And then I just look for a good skill set. If you're able to communicate effectively and really have that drive and passion, then I think that's really all it takes. And we're willing to invest in you and take that time to develop you.
Yeah. Would you just remind us who you work for, Ms. Asmeral?
Yep. So I work for Target.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
As far as I mentioned earlier in my intro, with the Department of Corrections, it's there's a civil service exam to be a correctional program officer, which you need to be 21, have a high school diploma or an equivalent to. Correctional program officer, you need a bachelor's degree or 5 years experience, and of course pass the civil service exam. And we just had the deadline for both of those exams, but they come out periodically and you can find them on mass.gov. But like I tell people all the time, in the Department of Corrections, or at least there's a misconception sometimes, and I think we're getting better at it, that it's either you're a correctional officer or there's always security. But there's so many things that you can do within the Department of Corrections. We have financing, we have teachers, we have principals. So depending on what your interests are, you can apply and do so much more. Or even if you decide to go in as a correctional officer or a correctional program officer, once you're in the field, if you're interested in doing something else in either utilizing your degree or your experiences or other interests, there's so much more that you can branch off into. So depending on what your interests are is going to depend on what jobs you may be able to take advantage of.
All right, I'll talk our half. I'm gonna go over, we have a couple programs that you can get into with the community, like Community With Us. So we have the CID program, and I'll talk about that one first. The CID, for the most part, you have to be a citizen. You have to be 21 years of age or older, and you also have to have a bachelor's or higher. This one is real selective because CID is like the military's, like FBI. They do all the like investigations. So with that, your area of study will have to be somewhere in that realm. Outside of that realm, we do accept accounting, a couple finance people, biology majors, but for the most part, we look for criminal justice, forensic science, and computer science, and also digital forensics. So if you fall in those categories, you could also apply for our CID. But just know that one is very extensive, and they do a large background check. Then we also have OCS, which is our Officer Candidate School, which will also help you out and get you into the intelligence career field, but it also branches off to medical, engineering. Like our OCS branches off everywhere. Only thing with that, you also have to have a college degree, but you could be 19 years old to apply for that one and no criminal background.
Or another route to get into like our career field. Like I dropped out of college and worked at Victoria's Secret and then just walked into a recruiting office and they gave me a top secret clearance. So there's a lot of different ways to join the Army. Don't drop out of college, but and don't work at Victoria's Secret. Terrible.
Great pieces of advice. Thank you.
You know?
It had to do with the word secret, right?
Anthony just gave me, I just wanted to speak on something that I didn't think about, as well as being correctional program officer or correctional officer, brought up a good point. If you're interested in investigations, if you're interested in becoming a drill instructor, things to that effect, there's a lot of specialized training that we do inside of the department to enhance in those specialized fields. So there's a lot of other things that go. We have the K-9 unit as well that you can get involved with, and directors of security. So there's a lot of different avenues that you can get involved with, and we provide that training once you come on board. Thanks, Anthony, for that.
So we don't necessarily require any experience. 4-year degree is preferred. If you have experience, that's a bonus. I came in as an intern, and I was hired from my internship out of actually Fitchburg State. So it really depends for us on who you are and how well you interview. Interviewing is huge. So
I'm sure we were all trying not to say, hello, Falcon, but Brandi is a former Falcon. I don't want to get in the way of anybody else's questions. Students, speak up if you have questions or put them in the chat. But I wonder if Samantha, because she's the only representative of the private sector here, would want to talk about sort of careers in her field, where people start, but also where they end up.
Yeah, of course. So, like I said, I started as a style team member. A lot of my peers, same thing. Even my boss started as a backroom team member at Target. So our entry level positions are amazing to get into to grow with the company. And we have positions such as like our market investigator who handles ORC crime, works with the police to get involved in those larger fencing cases where we try to shut down pawn shops. But again, like we go back to that basics, right? If you get in as an intern, if you get in as just a regular team member, this is where we really work with you and develop you. We'll give you what you give us. So you have to be eager and willing to learn, and you really have to put yourself out there, right? And work on your own development, get a mentor, and we'll invest in you, and you can grow through our company that way. But it typically does start with that entry-level position or somebody who's coming on with a degree. Maybe you get right into a team leader position. It's really just what you make of it and how we can help you get to that next level. All of my peers have grown within Target. Most of us have developed through the company ranks, which is incredible that we put that much into our own internal growth.
And maybe we could ask our two military folks, can you describe any sort of career trajectories? Do people tend to stay longer with the military when they're in your kind of position, or do they find themselves transitioning to civilian life with some carryover?
Yeah, I can speak on that. Is it? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, now you can hear me. A lot of soldiers in my career field, they'll do their 4-year enlistment in the Army and then take their security clearance and try to get a contracting job with like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, whatever. Because a lot of companies, they see that security clearance and it costs them, I think, around $70,000 to get a security clearance for someone, whereas they already have it from the military. So that's big money in the civilian world. And, we, in my career field, it kind of depends on what missions you work, because you can do a lot of networking and make a lot of contacts. Like I have a couple contacts with some CIA agents that I can, I follow them on Facebook, and every once in a while I'm like, hey, remember me? We did that one thing together. But we do, I know you don't get that as much in like the tactical realm, but yeah, there is a lot of play, like just having the military training and experience plus a security clearance. If you do decide to get out of the military, it's, what do you want to do? Pretty much.
Not bad. And to add to that, that's if you branch out and go civilian sector. But after your 4 years or 2 years, what you can do is branch over into one of our other specialty like agencies, like the CID. You could branch over from our job over to CID because, some people's like, hey, I want to do more investigation and I want to go a little deeper. So what they do is some of the training is also in Quantico, and you meet FBI agents, you meet the different communities so you could work in our field. And some people go undercover to just picture the military as a city. And what do a city needs to like survive? So we need medical, we need to invest. People break the law. I hate to say it, but even though we're in the military, people still break the law. Some people still try to get away with it. So we need that force to, interview, go undercover, do the investigations, and do all those things. So there's different avenues you can take.
And I'm just curious, sir, you had described your geographic relocations. I wonder if your colleague could talk about where she has served, just the chance to move around and be in different locations.
Yeah, I spent about 3 years at NSA Hawaii, and then I spent another 3 years in Colorado working at an Air Force base. For me, my job is not as mobile because I'm limited to places that have, like secure connections to the NSA. But in my job, working like national intelligence, we don't typically deploy much because why would we when we can just do our job from here?
Sure. Do you think NSA Hawaii is a great title for a new TV show?
Actually, I don't know if anyone knows Edward Snowden. Here we go, Kelly.
Yes.
I was actually at NSA Hawaii when Edward Snowden did his thing. And so I do get a sense of enjoyment watching all these like TV documentaries like, he worked in a secret underground bunker at the NSA. And I'm like, no, it's just an airplane hangar covered in dirt. Like, it's not that cool.
But thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And so students, I would really encourage you, these are lovely people willing to answer all of your questions. What are you, oh, here we go. All right, so we've got our first student question. I was wondering if I have to do an internship. I want to do it, but do not have much time since I work and study full time. What advice might you have for a student trying to get experience?
I would recommend making time for the internship in your schedule. I was a full-time single mother working a full-time job besides doing my internship. I split it over 2 semesters, which is something that Fitchburg State will work with you on, but I highly recommend it because it cannonballs your career. I wouldn't have gotten this job if I didn't do an internship. So,
and was it important for you to help what your interest was? Was that helpful to you?
So yes, because I never would have chosen a domestic violence advocate. And because I got into this, I also have a night job with Spectrum Health Systems where I work the flip side of it. So I am a paid facilitator 3 nights a week. I work with the batterers 3 nights a week doing group therapy sessions. So it really let me know that this is the field I wanted to be in, and now I've found other ways to sort of grow with it. it's important, in my opinion, to do an internship.
Fun fact, SAFEPLAN was my first internship out of college as well and led to my first job.
I'm aware.
And we
I
have
can-
a student who
Yeah.
raised her hand. I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
That's
Samantha.
okay. I was just going to add to the internship question. So I will not discourage you from doing an internship. They're great opportunities, right? Like everybody's already shared. But what I would say is if you're looking to get some more experience, you could always get into like a Target security specialist role like we have available at Target a couple days a week while you're going to school, because then you're trying out your field, right? It's a security position. You'd help mitigate loss for the company. You get to see that theft and fraud aspect. You'd be able to represent safety and security to take care of our guests, especially now during the middle of the pandemic, right? That's really what we're driving. So I think that would be great experience to put onto a resume as well. And then if you decided that it's something that you like and you want to pursue, then you grow with the company.
Good.
All right, I could add something. What we have the reserves where you just stay home and go to college, do what you have to do. But we also give, like, you can get 35 series jobs, and we call 35 series. That's our intelligence branch, and it's right here at Devon's. So you could literally do that. You only work a weekend out the month, but we help pay for your college. You're a government employee, and you still build up that experience. You still do everything. Only difference is you don't travel as much like we do. You just stay local, go to college, and do your thing. And the Army will still pay for your top secret clearance. So, and you can learn another language.
And we also, one of the reserve intelligence units that we work with on Fort Devens, they need a lot of linguists. So if you are looking into get into law enforcement at some point, being trained in a language is very beneficial, and the Army can do that for you. So
Interesting. That's great. Well, I have another question, although someone raised her hand. Was it Ashley Osborne? who raised her
Ashley.
hand?
Ashley,
Hi.
what's your question?
So the beginning of the semester, I was supposed to do an internship with the parole board, and then I got canceled because of COVID. And so I've always been interested in the corrections facility and figuring out what I want to pursue in that. So I was wondering how does COVID impact the possible chance of an internship, especially mainly towards corrections.
Great question.
Thank you for asking that question. So we have an internship program here for the Department of Correction. Julia Perez oversees that. And we're actually brainstorming right now on some innovative ways to continue that in the spring to get interns here. So stay tuned. We're looking at some creative ways to get you in there to kind of see what facilities are like and things to that effect. We're opening up a little bit, so hopefully sooner than later we'll be able to have you come in and look at the correctional facilities to see what they're about. But unfortunately, right now with COVID, that coming in has actually stopped. But we're looking at ways to do it virtually if we can't access it that way.
Awesome, thank you.
Perfect. We have another question in the chat for Brandi. Other than your internship, did you have any other experience in domestic violence, in the domestic violence part of criminal justice? If you don't have time for an example, for an internship, do you need other experience for the field?
So this is tricky. If you are a survivor and you have that type of experience, it's a very different feel because you've experienced leaving a relationship. We typically look for a 2 to 4 year degree depending on what type of position you're applying for. I work at the courts and I have almost an associate's degree in criminal justice, but I also have a bachelor's degree in human services. And I'm currently trying to continue on. So we do require some experience, at least working with people. If you can get in anywhere as a volunteer, that's huge, especially in our field, because there's a lot of little ins and outs and sort of nuances to working with survivors. Did I answer that?
Sounds like, yeah. So Brandi's answer to that question, I wondered if perhaps sometimes our students want, at some point after a break, they want to pursue their further education, maybe a master's or something of that sort. And I'm just wondering, I rather imagine the federal government is pretty generous with paying for further education. Tell me if I'm wrong on that, but I assume that. How about the state? If you work for DOC, for example, and then we'll ask Samantha about the private sector.
Yeah, so there's tuition reimbursement that you apply for the state if you're interested in pursuing your education as well. And as I mentioned earlier, to become a correctional officer or a correctional program officer, which are both civil service exams, if they have a flat pay rate. However, if you have a degree, you get paid higher to compensate for that. So your pay will be higher if you're someone who comes in with a degree. And like I said, we pay tuition reimbursement if you apply for it.
Would you mind just reminding everybody the difference between a correctional officer and a correctional program officer?
So a correctional officer does the all of the security inside of the facility, the counts, the rounds, basically the police within the facility. A correctional program officer, you go through the same academy. I believe it's an 8-week academy, physical, academic part of it, and then you have to pass firearms training as well. But then once you graduate, the difference is that the correctional officer does all the security, the interaction, and doing the security needs of the offender. The correctional program officer, at times in the beginning, will also serve and do the security role, but you're almost as more of a caseworker. You're identifying some needs of the offender, and you're helping them meet those needs, whether it's preparing to go home, whether it's ordering things in the facility, clothing and things to that effect. But you're basically an advocate for the offender while they're there. But it's also having dual roles. Security is first, so being security minded as well as treatment minded. But both, either career correctional officer or correctional program officer, if after you're in the department for a while, kind of like what Samantha had mentioned, your motivation is going to drive your career. If you're really motivated and you want to get into investigations or OIS, or if you want to get into management, be a director of security or one day a superintendent, with those positions, you can grow into so much more. You can go into the financing field. You can evolve your career into basically anything that you want or anything that you invest yourself into. Like I said, I started off as a contract employee, was a CPO doing security and casework, and now I'm the deputy director of diversity. So depending on what your interests are and your motivation, the sky's the limit with the Department of Corrections. Hopefully that helped.
I think so. And we do have a student question, but if you don't mind, I just wanted to get Samantha's take on the future of higher education when you work for Target.
Yeah, so I think the question was tuition reimbursement, if I'm correct here.
Right.
So Target does do tuition reimbursement for any of our team leader and above positions.
Okay, good to know. And then I know Randy had a question in the chat.
Yes. So this is for Ms. Perez. Are there any benefits to having a current security clearance? I'm wondering if there are any specialized task force with ICE, USICS, BOP, etc. And you're muted.
I wonder if he attended that for our military people.
Hi. So yeah, security clearances are mainly dealing with like foreign intelligence. because they want to make sure that you have no ties. The point of an investigation for a security clearance is to make sure like no one can blackmail you, or you have no foreign bank accounts. And if you do have foreign contacts, that they're not whatever. But I don't know as on the civilian sector.
So I think I should
I think-
restate that.
Go ahead, Randy. Speak up.
I am a recent ETS. I just got out. I currently hold just a secret. My employer right now, we have a task force with the U.S. Marshals, but unfortunately, I'm only a rookie in my department. So I'm wondering if DOC has some sort of
Oh, he did.
better task force skill, if that's even an option.
So I guess I'm not, so I'll answer it. And if I'm not answering your question, let me know. So as I had mentioned, there's an OIS, there's an investigation, there's a different division in the department that deals with apprehension, investigations, and things to that effect. You wouldn't, if you had a clearance, that would, if you applied and were already in the department, that would definitely help you. But as far as needing that, I'm not familiar. I'm sorry.
Thanks.
Perfect. And we have a question for all of our panelists. What influenced your decision to choose these career paths? And I would even expand on that of, how did you figure out this is where you wanted to be, and was it a plan or did it just happen?
I'll go first. This is always a funny story. So basically with me, I originally went to college for computer engineering, and I literally went to a recruiter station because after doing my internship, I worked on a project for probably 6 months. And then at the end of it, my project was too cost effective for the company. And they told me to interchange parts and make it cheaper and make it more cost effective. And, when you're young, you feel like, I wanted to change the world. I didn't want to make a product that I would have to redesign to make it, so people spend more money over time. I felt like my design was great. And they was like, nope, it is great, but you need to change it because the company will not make as much money unless you change these parts. So I was really upset about that. And I felt like I wasn't, I wouldn't contribute to the world like I wanted to. So I went to a recruiter office and was like, look, this is what it is. I want to do this. I did all the research. I just knew I had all answers. And I went in there. And then after I went through the whole process of, the interview and, background check, fingerprints, all that good stuff, the guy was like, yeah, so what job do you want? I was like, I told you what job I want. And it popped up and he was like, so it's computers here, but signal analyst is right here and you'll get a top secret. Your life would be great. You should it's way better than just working on computers all your life. And I was like, I don't have any experience. And he was like, you don't need any. The Army will teach you. And I was like, okay, I already went to school for it, so I'll try something new. And I went over. I loved it. I loved the travel. I loved the tactical side. Sadly enough, I'm not too much of the office type, even though I am now. But back in the day, I didn't want to be in the office. But that's how I got in my career field. Literally, just so happenstance that somebody told me my product was too cost effective. I got upset, went to the Army, and here I am. Do you want to say? No.
Oh, I just racked up too much debt in college and decided to join the Army. Here I am.
I can go ahead here. So for me, I had no intentions of making loss prevention my career. I wanted to be a lawyer when I was younger, and then I realized it was way too much school for my liking. So I kind of steered away from that. I was like, okay, I'll go towards business, right? Business degree can kind of get you into a bunch of different things. So I went to school for business. And then, like I said, I took on that part-time job at Target seasonally. And once I got into loss prevention, just working the external investigations and being able to apprehend shoplifters, to keep product in the building, and then even working these internal investigations on team members that take from the company, right? It just really it lit a fire in me, and I was like, this is amazing. And I just continued down that path, and here I am now. I made a career out of it. But I truly believe that you should do something that you love and that makes you happy. So when I was happy going to work every day, I was like, okay, this is something I'm going to do, because I'm not going to just go take another job and be miserable. So that's how I got where I was.
I guess I'll go next. So I went into human services. I always wanted to help people. And then when I decided I needed a bigger degree, or whatever you want to call it, I went to Fitchburg State, and one of my professors was like, you'd be perfect for this internship. So it just sort of all fell into place. I feel like this is where I belong. So at least for now.
Okay, so kind of like Brandi, I wanted to be in the helping field. I worked for Concord Assabet, which was a behavioral resident for boys and girls. And there was a posting. My husband was working for Spectrum Health Systems, and they needed a bilingual female. And it was closer to home. It paid a little bit more, but I never envisioned going to work at a prison because I watched all the movies and stuff. And then I got hired on the spot, and I was like, oh no. I was just coming to kind of have my husband just kind of, just to kind of shut him up, for lack of a better word. And I did it. And as Samantha said, I loved it. Something about being in there with the offenders and teaching them and kind of being in the hustle and bustle. I never thought I would say that I enjoyed it, but I really did. And even when I went off and I did the security part of it, I said, wait a minute, I went from helping them to now doing restraints and doing other security things. But I found that I always enjoyed what I was doing, and the job doesn't get old. Yeah, you can always do something different to kind of energize yourself. So I kind of ended up in there by accident and ended up loving it, and been there ever since.
I love all those examples, and I hope this helps to, especially for our seniors, to feel a little better of you don't have to have it all figured out quite yet. You just need to try some things out and see what sticks and what fits. So thank you. We do have another question from a student that has dual citizenship. Would this affect getting a government job at all at either the state or federal level?
It would not affect working with us.
For the military, it depends on what country, but no, you're fully eligible for a security clearance if you have dual citizenship, as long as it's not Russia or China. Those might be hard.
I believe for the Department of Corrections as well. Yes.
Great. Does anyone have a question that they've been thinking about?
I want to just add that I think most of the adults I know did not necessarily plan on being where they are today, that careers grow. They grow by finding out what you enjoy. How were any of us to know that we would enjoy doing what we were doing until we did it? you know, and one of the things I think that's been important to many of the people that I know is to do whatever it is you do with people that you respect and enjoy and admire, so that, you know, when you go into work, it's not just, oh, I'm going to do my job today, but I'm going to do it with people that I value. So I encourage all of our students to think experimentally, and it's a journey to find out, what is it I actually liked? How do I like to spend my time? When do I feel most fully engaged? What I think is just fabulous is I'm hearing people who have found room to grow within one organization, which is just wonderful, and people who came into contact with an organization that said, hey, we value you, and they felt valued. So I think both are very, very important career paths. Another question has arrived.
Yes, for Ms. Perez. You mentioned something about the K-9 unit, and I was wondering what the possible steps are to get into that department. And you are muted before you get too far.
It's going back and becoming a correctional program officer or a correctional officer. Once you're in, those are called specialized units. You apply to get into those units. There's an interview process. So that's something that you can aspire to do once you get in.
And I want to be cognizant of everyone's time. And so one of our final questions, unless a student thinks of something urgent, what words of wisdom or advice would you have for someone who's, you know, potentially graduating within the next year? You know, what would you like to say to them?
I would say put yourself out there and explore all different opportunities, right? Like I said, people look at Target and they're like, oh, well, that doesn't fit with my CG background. But in essence, it really does, right? So put yourself out there, explore all of your options, and go after what you really want.
Yeah, and never sell yourself short. I never thought I'd want to work in a prison. I'd want to be around offenders. And I kid you not, when I was thinking about relocating and retiring a few years ago, they asked me, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to work in a prison. This is what I love to do. That's where my heart is. So, you know, don't sell yourself short. You know, go for it and try different things, and you'll never know what you enjoy. But I agreed with what somebody had said earlier. It's really important to kind of enjoy what you're doing and the people that you're working with.
I guess my words of wisdom are, you're not going to have it all figured out. Don't expect that when you get that degree handed to you, you've got it. Because that's not how it works. It takes time and work to get to where you want to be. And you may not know where you want to be just yet. So don't overstress it, but take your time to figure it out. Make sure you know what you want to do. Because they're right. If you don't love your work, like I could never do this job if I didn't love the work I did. And I've seen people burn out. So if you go into something that you don't love, it's bad in the end. So
my advice to anyone out there that's thinking of like anything in life, you have to treat it like this. You only have one life, right? And our life is compiled of experiences. When I was 18, I said I would never join any military branch, period. I'm gonna be whatever I want to be. And then at 23, I raised my right hand and served my country. And to be honest, one of the best decisions I ever made. I'm not gonna lie, I was afraid to go to war. But when I went over there, it was a lot different. You know, we have our scary times, but I realized that in life, you literally live it once, and all the experiences, never sell yourself short. That's a great one. It's never, like, no matter what career field you go for, never put yourself above anything. Never tell yourself that you just won't do it. Always push forward, even if you feel like it's out of reach. I'm working on my second degree and my master's. And to be honest, I did not like college that much, but here I am. I'm pushing for certain things that I want, and you can do it. Just never sell yourself short. Always move forward. And if you get knocked down, dust it off and stand right back up, because failure, just learn from it. I failed a lot of times in my career in the military, and every school that I failed, half of them I went back to and passed, and the other half I just learned a lot, and I got to mentor and teach other people. So never sell yourself short and always push forward.
I think this is wonderful, wonderful advice. And I'm personally just sitting here thinking, look at the variety of occupations represented on this panel. I mean, it's as broad as human life. And I think it's thrilling that students can major in criminal justice and go in so many different directions.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to our students. And I do want to mention for students that with the upcoming career fair, both Department of Corrections and Target are registered. So take a peek if you are inspired and thinking about things like internships and jobs. Go in there and snag your spot now. Sign up for those sessions. But thank you so much to all of our panelists. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk to our students.
We're very grateful.
Thank you guys so much for having us. Just to touch on the career fair, guys, if you guys want to take a deeper look at what loss prevention at Target looks like, we'll be doing some info sessions during those. But thank you guys so much for the time today. It was awesome to connect with everybody.
Great. So I will hang out for a little bit if there are other questions, but I will let all of our panelists, I know you all have very, very tight schedules, and I appreciate you taking the time out. But if anyone has any questions, I will hang out a little longer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thanks.
Go Falcons, Brandi.
You know,